rounds, but caution shouldn't count. Shouldn't be any way rounds, but
Hello, everybody, and welcome to
back
Birdman
to the session.
TV for our broadcast of the 100% IROC series. My name is Cody Bird, and I'm joined today with.
All right. If no other questions,
Andre Granbush. I worked a little bit with 3 Wide TV for the Galaxy Cup Series, did broadcasts for them, and now got the honor of working with Cody Bird here for the IROC Series that they're going to be doing here at Michigan International.
boys.
Yeah, we're looking forward to a good race. So, little background on the IROC series. There is 4 drivers from the Galaxy Truck Series who are
All right,
joining
boys.
us.
You got 2 minutes
Champion
left.
Alonso Chicano.
Back at
We
'em.
got Jimmy
Good luck
Costarelos,
tonight.
Carl Felver, and Craig Fryer.
Michigan.
We also have some drivers from our Galaxy Cup Series.
I get that joke.
Reigning champion Cameron Stone.
Track is open.
Second place Kevin Steele. We also got Bryson Hixenball, Jonathan Delaney, Preston McRae, and from 2 other series we got Wayne Grassi, Dustin Schwingle, Landon Dyerhold, and Stephen Parrott. We're looking forward to having some fun with you guys today. Would you agree with that, Andre?
Absolutely. If you guys are old enough to remember the actual IROC Series in real life, years and years ago, that was always a blast to watch. The cars have so little horsepower that it really just comes down to drafting and just being able to really put your car where maybe it doesn't belong in order to make some pretty aggressive moves. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, we don't have the real IROC cars in iRacing, so we've substituted that with a Cadillac sports car, and they're actually getting up to some decent speed, Cody. I mean, I'm looking at the speedometer right now, and the telemetry is telling me they're getting up to about 185 at the end of these straights. So there's some speed here, and even a little bit of off-throttle time. So they do have to kind of manage their throttle and even probably control their tire wear. As the car looks a little tight, it's going to wear on those tires over time. So not quite going to be a walk in the park, especially when the competition is so tight. Obviously, everybody in this race is a champion in some form or fashion. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and especially with all the drafting, it's definitely going to make it interesting. Nobody's definitely going to get any type of breakaway per se, but it should be fun, especially with some of the histories between some of these drivers, especially. No battle I'm looking at personally is the battle between Bryson Hixenball and Cameron Stone. Obviously, if you were with 3Y TV for the championship, you saw Cameron Stone wreck Bryson Hixenball for the championship there. What do you have your eye out on, Andre?
You know, it's hard to tell because, and I said the same thing with the Galaxy Indy 500 that I helped commentate not too long ago. These cars are such a change of pace. You know, most of these guys are used to the NASCAR vehicles, stock cars, the trucks, the cup cars, whatever. And these are Cadillac sports cars. And not only that, but we've taken these cars away from their kind of preferred environment. These are road cars. These are meant to go left and right. They're not really meant to be put in a slipstream at 180 miles an hour barreling into the turn, and yet that's what we're doing with them. So even if a couple of drivers have a history or they have a past, I think the learning curve is what's going to be the first thing on their mind. And then maybe later on, as they get used to the car and they get the feel for it, you know, maybe then they start thinking about, all right, you know, here's the dynamic and here's how I'm going to respond to that. But for now, I think they just got to focus on getting used to the car and really figuring things out. But really, you know, watching this practice, it seems like these drivers have adapted really quickly. I've seen a lot of slingshot maneuvers, a lot of side-by-side racing, and I mean, they're really doing a heck of a job wheeling these things around. One thing to mention, Cody, is that a lot of the drivers have said over the radio, these cars are brittle. You know, stock cars, you can bang them around, hit another guy, you're really no worse for wear. These cars, a lot of drivers are reporting that a single scrape on the wall, just a little bit of a scrape, is actually damaging their car enough to take that arrow away and slow them down. So they're getting used to the car and they're driving aggressive, but they got to be careful. These things are not stock cars by any means.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with some of the rules in place here today as well, especially with the cars. The only time that you're allowed to go down pit road under yellow is if you have damage. So a lot of drivers have to keep that in mind as well, because if they have to pit at any time during the race, they're going to need to do it under green, or else they're going to face a one-lap penalty, which makes it very interesting. Another thing to look at as well for this race starting, it was randomly assigned for starting position, random draw. So there may be some mixing and matching between some of these guys, but it should make for a very interesting race throughout, especially with all 13 of these guys being champions, as you mentioned.
Another thing to note about the qualifying is while this was a random draw, they were told in the drivers' meeting that next week the starting order is just going to be an inverse of the finishing order. So the winner is going to start in last is going to start first, so on and so forth. And that's going to make for some interesting dynamics, I think, next week even, because you're going to have these guys who are, starting towards the back, but they had the pace to win the last race. They're going to have to carve their way through traffic. And then you have these guys who maybe aren't used to being up. I mean, they're all champions. They're used to being up front, but you have these guys that maybe didn't finish too well. Now they got a chance to run up front, and they got to kind of adapt to playing more defensively. So the random draw is going to make it fun, and then next week the other system we'll be using is definitely going to make it fun. And overall, I'm just excited for this series. This is definitely something I've been looking forward to since they announced it. I wasn't planning on commentating it. It's kind of a last-minute thing, but I still planned on tuning in through the spectating if I was able. So just glad to be here, and I'm excited to watch this.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been something that they've been talking about for multiple weeks on end, and it's shown in this early practice session that there's been times they were 3 and 4 wide, especially going in the corners. So you can expect these races to be really good. The one thing also to note here is that while in the original IROC series, you noticed that caution laps did not count. Oh, and just as I say that, you can see how fragile the car is.
Sorry,
in
Wayne, I got
grassy,
squeezed there.
going spinning. So unfortunately with the beta UI, it set it up where caution laps will count this week for this race.
Yeah, it was a bit of an error on iRacing's part. The admins wanted the caution laps to not count. That's how they initially set it. Unfortunately, there's a bug right now with the beta UI where if you go in to edit a session, if you view that session that you've already created, it actually resets all of the settings to the default. And by default, caution laps count. So this week, should we get a yellow flag, the yellow flag laps will count towards the total. But next week, that should be corrected, and we'll be back to something a little bit truer to the actual IROC series. Another thing that ended up accidentally getting enabled while we're on the topic, just so people don't get confused if they see it this week and then not next week, wave arounds are supposed to be disabled. However, that is another thing that got turned back on when the session was viewed, and so now there will be wave arounds this race. If it comes to that, I'm not sure we're going to see anybody go a lap down, but if it comes to that, there will be a wave around, whereas next week, that is not going to be a possibility. You're going to have to get your lap back the old-fashioned way, and that's how it's going to be. But yeah, so a little bit of an issue there. Unfortunately, with the iRacing beta UI being what it is, that's why I stick with the web client. But it is what it is, and they're going to work through it. It's we're all here for fun, so it's no biggie.
Yeah, and I think we also owe a big thank you to Damaris and Kevin for putting the series on, as well as for having us in the booth. Really, like you mentioned, weren't really planning on it. Tuesday came around, I was just sitting around, and of course, 2 of my teammates last year, Bryson Hicksonball and Cameron Stone, were running it, and kind of wanted to be involved in the session somehow. So I thought, what's the best way to do it? To get a little practice commentating. And everything so far from what has come from Damaris has been good. And it looks like we may have just lost half our grid in practice with that accident.
They might want to roll out the backup cars off the hauler there, because that ain't looking too good, Chief.
No. But yeah, no, everything that I've seen from it so far looks promising, and I really hope we can see these champions battle it out like they should. Points are on the line, but everybody starts off fresh, and it's season long too, so there is no playoffs. I'm sure Bryson Hicksonball is very happy about no playoffs.
I would wager to bet. I'm not a betting man, but I would think the guy who won 15 races in a season and then didn't get the championship is probably pretty glad that there's no playoff system in this IROC series. But we're just gonna have to see. He dominated the Cup Series for Galaxy, but these are different cars. Different cars, different competition. He's a very talented driver, and if anybody can adapt, it would be him. But we'll just have to see. I think this is kind of more of a level playing field than what we're kind of used to seeing. So it's going to be interesting. And what with the qualifying being completely random, it's gonna put him in some interesting situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And
you want to come show me next?
Looking at everything else, only about a minute left in practice. And as you can see currently, with the way these cars are, Alonso currently at the top of the leaderboard with a 40.27, looks like 276. And everybody's within half a second of each other, which should make for, again, as I keep saying it because, can't ever not just say one thing one time, make for some good racing.
Absolutely, and I'm surprised they're that close. Honestly, going into this race, I didn't know how the cars were going to handle. I kind of thought they would be wide open, but then I got in the session. I started riding on board on the cameras on some of these cars, and I was listening to the engine, and I noticed how much they're lifting and how much car control they have to have. And despite the fact that these cars seem to be a bit technical around these corners, they're still all within half a second of each other. So that is kind of a testament to the talent in this field, and kind of shows why they're here in the IROC series to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. So now the part of the broadcast comes around. Who do you have to win this race tonight?
I'm gonna put my money on. I'm gonna put my money on Bryson Nixonbaugh. I think I have to. When it comes to oval racing, he's one of the best drivers I think I've ever seen on iRacing. I mean, I know, there's drivers above him, sure, in iRating and stuff, but me personally, of all the drivers I've known, he is one of the best, and it seems like no matter what he does, no matter what car he gets in, he's there to win, and usually he pulls it off. So I'm going to put my money on Nixonbaugh.
Yeah, I'm going to put my money on Jonathan Delaney. Throughout the entire season, these plate-type races showed that it was very beneficial for him to win.
Get my piss in.
Especially with all of everything going on. As you can hear, we got radio chatter too, which should make it very interesting with some of these guys. As I get to the pace car here, hopefully, maybe it works. There we go. And getting to the grid today. So on pole today, we got Dustin Schwingle driving the number 13 car.
No, John, I am not.
Starting outside the front row, we got Cameron Stone, champion of the Galaxy Cup Series. We got Alonso Chicano, champion of the Truck Series, Galaxy Truck Series. Carl Felver, who raced in the Truck Series. Jonathan Delaney, two-time winner of the Galaxy Cup Series. And then starting sixth, we got Landon Dyerhold, who finished second to Stephen Parrott in the L-TAC Championship.
From Deerhold on back, you've got Bryson Nixonbaugh starting 7th, along with Steve Parrott starting 8th. You got Preston McRae 9th, and then you have Craig Fryer starting 10th. Wayne Grassy 11th, Kevin Steele 12th, and then running out your field all on his own in row 7, that's going to be Jimmy Costarellos. So quite the packed field, and they have made their way out of pit lane. They're coasting. They are going to make their way around this track, I believe, a single time. The green flag is going to fly, and we're going to get to racing.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the start. I expect to see some 3 and 4 wide throughout the field.
Oh, yeah. You're going to see definitely 3 and 4 wide. When we were watching practice there and just kind of tuning in and talking about the race, I think the viewers at home already saw quite a bit of 3 and 4 wide. And that's kind of the nice thing about these cars and how much downforce they have is they're so in control. You can do things that maybe if you were in a less stable car like the stock car or something like that, maybe you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't make those kinds of moves. But these cars are just kind of planted. They got all that downforce, the big old spoiler on the back, or as Bryson Nixonbaugh calls it, the couldn't wreck it if you wanted to wing. So you can kind of make a lot of crazy moves. And with the race only being 50 laps, too, that's another thing. 50 laps here, not that long of a race. There's going to be a lot of aggression right out the gate. The pace car has made its way down towards the inside pit lane. The start of the race is going to be at the leader's discretion, and he's off. Schwingle has gotten on the throttle. He's going to get out to a bit of a lead there. He's going to clear second place, but maintain the bottom, and we're racing.
Oh, and as immediately you can see, they're already going into the corner 2 wide. They're ready to get going and push their way towards the front. Going into turn 1, as you can see, they're starting to kind of get singled out, trying to get what honestly got them to the front of the field throughout the season. Early, being careful, not going nuts, and that's why they're all top drivers in their series.
Absolutely, and I think the draft is going to be such an important thing that lane choice is going to be this strategy that they need. You see it a lot at plate tracks in the Cup Series and in the Truck Series where you see one lane forming up with a bunch of cars and then maybe another lane that isn't as strong, doesn't have so many cars. It's kind of a self-fulfilling cycle. When a lane has a bunch of cars, it's going to get more cars. So in this case, a lot of drivers were up high, and so a lot of drivers joined them, and there was only a few stuck on the bottom. But now it kind of looks like the bottom's forming up. You got 3 cars down there, spearheaded by, that looks to be Felver. He's the first car on the bottom, and he is kind of trying to lead that charge now. Alonso Chicano, the Galaxy Truck Series champion, he's going to take the point, dive down to the bottom of the track, but now sliding back up. He's side by side for the lead. And now there goes Schwingle back to the point. And we're already seeing that bit of a revolving door effect where the guy who gets the lead has such a hard time holding it simply because the slipstream is so severe in these cars.
Yeah, and as you can see outside too, we got Cameron Stone making a push as well to the front. As it's been aforementioned, and there goes Bryson Hixenbaugh making it 3 wide for second. All 3 of these guys are pretty close with friendship, but they're all trying to win this race, and obviously when it comes to this now, especially with no real teams, everybody wants that win, and it's going to do what it takes. As Cam Stone dives low to go for the lead.
That was an aggressive move right there. Cameron Stone was kind of boxed in. He had Chicano behind him, Schwingle in front of him. And with just like an inch of clearance, he actually dove to the bottom. Now making it 3 wide for the lead. That teal-blue Cameron Stone machine glued to that yellow line. But they're going to remain 3 wide. Nobody getting the advantage through 1 and 2. Everybody remaining equal. And behind them, another battle forming as Felver is trying to join the battle alongside what appears to be Bryson Hixenbaugh. So they are absolutely battling it out. And I think on the radio chatter right there, Hixenbaugh said, not touching it, or something to that effect. So he's backing out a little bit and letting these guys battle it out early on.
I'll tell you what, these early couple laps for this race are really fun to watch. And especially, I'm looking forward to the last 5 laps. If it's already this way 5 laps in, I thought for sure they would get single file, kind of ride around for the first 45 laps, but no, they're getting at it.
Absolutely, but you know what? They got to get there first. If they all wreck out on lap 10, I don't think the last 5 laps are going to be too exciting. So they got to be smart. You know, they got to stay in the game. There's no fast repairs, and like we mentioned in practice, these cars are brittle. But I think, again, the reason you're seeing the aggressive moves that we've had already is just because these guys are so good, they can do it. You know, these are the best of the best in their series and whatever leagues they ran in. You know, we got drivers across multiple leagues here who are champions, and they, you know, they can afford to make these moves. You know, maybe if this was a pub lobby, you would see a lot of pile-ups and spin-outs from guys trying to make these moves, but not here. So it's definitely interesting to see play out because, like you said, kind of expected them to get single-filed out, and that is, so far, not what we've seen.
Yeah, and as you were talking about that, and as I mentioned earlier, Cameron Stone and Bryson Hixenbaugh obviously having that history, they're actually bump drafting to get to the front. These cars, you may remember from 2011 NASCAR when they used to be able to tandem draft. These cars are able to do that for a certain amount of time, which makes it interesting to see who's going to work with who when it comes down to the end of it.
Right, and there is no rule against tandem drafting as far as I'm aware. The only rule is don't blow up. So they got to watch their temps, make sure that you know their temps are staying good, and as long as they do that, they can really push and shove down these back straights, and even through the tri-oval if they're really technical, and they can try to use that to get an advantage. But now looks like Cameron Stone's kind of dedicated to the high line when it comes to the straightaways, and then in the corners he's kind of running that middle line. So right now, I mean, he could dip down, he could work with Hixenbaugh, but he's kind of just keeping them even. And now, down to the bottom, there he goes, gets a huge run out of the corner, right down onto the apron. He's going to get to the quarter panel of Felver. Almost some contact there, not quite. And they are going to side draft like madmen going into 1 and 2, now alongside Bryson Hixenbaugh. He's around Felver for now, but he's going to get that run coming out of the corner. That's the question. Yes, he is. Felver being a bit of a force up there. Into the wall goes Felver. A little bit of contact there. That's going to check him up and then allow Cameron Stone to go right on by. He's currently being pushed by Jimmy Costarellos in that white number 8 machine. So that was quite a good move by them. But go ahead, Cody.
Yeah, no, as it was mentioned earlier, these cars are fragile. So as you can see from the broadcast, you can see already his right front tire is kind of, the right front quarter panel is kind of damaged. And I'm curious to see if his steering is now messed up from that hit.
Yeah, when you get into the wall like that, sometimes it's not just body work. Sometimes something inside the car actually gets bent, whether it's your A-arm or your axle. Something can get bent, and that'll throw your steering off. And when that happens, usually it slows you down, but another effect that has is just wearing you down, because then you have to work on the steering harder. It's always a little bit offset. It just doesn't feel right, and it's just kind of fatiguing to deal with. So hopefully his car is all right. We can hope that it's just body damage, and it wasn't too hard of a hit, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was just aero damage. The question is, whoa! And we got a wreck. Bryson Hicksonbaugh spins hard into the wall. That was a purple car. Not sure who it was yet. We're going to try and identify it, but the yellow flag has come out in dramatic fashion for the first time.
Yeah, and let's go back and look at that accident. Because that looked... Oh, and there's still a car flipping. Oh, man. That looked like that hurt. So, looking back at this replay, it looks like... Not even on the right car. Oh! Alonso checked down, hit Bryson across the right front quarter panel, and came back up in the track, and ended up wrecking, it looks like, Wayne Grassy.
Alonso got a little bit of help there. He was being bump drafted, and unfortunately that just got him a little loose. It turned him down across Hicksonbaugh. Luckily, Hicksonbaugh got out with really not too much damage, but Wayne Grassy, on the other hand, I believe that was, who was flipping, he's got, Wayne Grassy gets collected just as the netcode fades out, and that is probably going to be his day done.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to that accident, Cameron Stone in the 5 car
is still closed.
going
Pit
to
road is still
the
closed.
in-car
Bryson, you are
cam.
good to pit to repair damage. No tires, but you are good to pit to repair damage.
I apologize. It's rewinding, so I can...
Yeah, normally we'd have a producer, ladies and gentlemen, but we're kind of doing this on the fly, so it's just going to take us a minute to find it. But that was Cameron Stone who was actually bump drafting Alonso, who got him loose. Cameron came across the radio just now, said, "I'm sorry, Alonso. I don't know what was different that time." So that's just kind of one of those unpredictable things when it comes to bump drafting. Sometimes you think you got the bumpers lined up just right, and you think that it's going to stick, but unfortunately, sometimes you lift the rear end tires of the car that you're pushing just a little bit, get them sideways, and that's it. And that's kind of a unfortunate side effect as well of having spoilers this big, is these cars are built to go fast, straight. You get these cars sideways, and the air no longer goes over that rear wing like it should, and you go from having all the downforce you could possibly want to absolutely none. So when that happens, it's almost impossible to save the car. That's why you saw Hicksonbaugh continue to spin through the apron and continue to spin down towards the inside wall, luckily not hitting anything. But if this were a stock car, he might have been able to gather it up. Unfortunately, these big wings, that's what happens. So Wayne Grassy's car currently sitting on pit road. A lot of damage to that thing. Not sure he's going to get that back on the track, but we'll keep an eye out. So riding on board, you can see just a minute ago, it was just a little tap. That's all it took. A little tap. Go ahead.
Something I noticed from previous laps as well, it looked like that bump looked like Cam was coming with a lot more speed than he was on previous start. So I think that's what caused the accident, was just because of how much speed Cam carried into that bump.
Right. I think you're absolutely right, because I mentioned how you can lift up the rear tires of the car that you're pushing if you push too hard, and I think that is exactly what happened there. You could see on the onboard cam, Alonso's suspension kind of got raised up. I mean, his car definitely got unsettled, and it's just the unfortunate result. But when you got a track like this where you're bump drafting and you got a field full of champions who are not going to give an inch, and they're going to take everything they can, sometimes that happens. And I think we're lucky with that happening towards the front of the field. I think we're lucky there's really only one car involved that's definitively done. Alonso's got quite a bit of damage. I'm looking at his car on pit road. He's got a lot of damage, but I don't think his day is done. I don't know. That front end of the car is not looking too hot. So possibly 2 cars that are out of the race, but it could have been more. Definitely could have been more happening right at the front of the field.
Yeah, and just as you were saying that, Bryson came across the radio and said he has about 10 minutes of damage. So it looks like his day's pretty much done now because of the accident.
Yeah, he's going to have to get as much of that fixed as he can and try to get out ahead of the pace car and then hope that he gets another caution to fix more of it. But even if he does get out on the track with damage like that, I'm not sure he's going to be able to really keep the pace when aero is so important to the top speed here. So we're just gonna have to see.
Did you say 100?
But I'm gonna take a look here at the pace
No,
car if I
hour,
can
13
find it.
minutes.
Yeah, lights are off on the pace car, so we're gonna be getting going here this time around. And that is Cameron Stone leading the way. Jimmy
Yeah.
Costrellis on his
Cadillac.
outside. Schwingle is the inside of row 2. And Kevin Steele is going to make up the outside of row 2. So a strong front row. We're going to have to see what happens here. Ready to go racing, Cody?
Yeah, same. Those first 10 laps were exciting. It stinks to see 4 guys out of the race already, 4 perennial racers. But hey, looking forward to the next. And it looks like we're about to go green here, and we're off. Cam Stone takes the early advantage, and Jimmy Costarellis falls in right behind.
That's a big jump that Cam got right there. He kind of left Schwingle in the dust. And then Costrellis able to capitalize. He pushed really hard to try to get up into P2. And he has. He's not quite clear, though. So they're going to stay side by side for second place. Now Schwingle single filing out. That's going to put Costrellis comfortably into second. And nope, not quite, because here comes Schwingle again down to the bottom. They're duking it out for second place.
Yeah, and something that you always said was Kevin Consistency Steele. He missed the first accident, and he's right up there just like normal. I know it's early, probably not quite where he's ready to be yet, but hey, you never know.
Yeah, we call him Kevin Consistency Steele for a reason. He's just got a knack for that, you know. When there's a giant pileup, you can almost always guarantee that he was the guy who just barely slipped through it and didn't get any damage. And he seems to always be there at the end of the race. And he made the Final Four in the Galaxy Cup Series, came this close to getting the championship, and really that's how he did it. He didn't do it through winning every single race or leading every single lap. He did it by being smart and fast at the same time. So he's a heck of a driver, and he's always fun to watch, man, because it's one thing when a guy dominates a race. It's one thing when some guy goes out there and leads every single lap. But I think, to me, it is fascinating to watch more methodical style racing. And that is a word that describes Kevin Steele, is methodical. He just kind of lingers back where he feels comfortable, where he knows he needs to be. And then every time a driver in front of him makes a mistake, boom, he capitalizes on it. And you just look at the running order throughout the race, and he just up and up and up. And then at the end, he's like Kevin Harvick, man. Where did he come from? There he is. So big race for the lead, breaking out right now as Costrellis is on the bumper of Cameron Stone. He shoved him into turn 3. Actually might have pushed him up the track a little bit. That allowed Schwingle to get down to the bottom and challenge for the lead, but the draft up top was just a little bit too strong. So now Cameron Stone back up to P1, and they're going to single file out for 1 and 2. Whoa! It looks like Cameron Stone attempted a block there. Wasn't quite clear. Luckily, they avoided any contact.
Yeah, and going back to the thing on Kevin Consistency Steele, look where he was in position at the championship race during Phoenix. He went for the lead. He was there with 2 to go. Unfortunately, car got a little loose, and it ended up costing him the championship. But he only had 1 win all season, and he was right there ready for the championship. As it looks like he's starting to try the high line and try to get around Costarellis and Cameron Stone.
And you got to try something. You know, this track has kind of proven to us that passing is going to be difficult. The leader is going to be able to throw a block. It's going to be able to kind of choose his lane and play defense. And so if you want to make these passes, you kind of have to choose your lane, make sure you've got the draft help around you. And I think the top line has been kind of underrated so far. We've seen a couple of moves up high, but for the most part, it seems like every time the leader wants to play the defense, they move down the track and they block the bottom. So if a driver could get speed up top, if they could get a top line running and just kind of make their lunge at the right time and catch the leader off guard, that could be the move.
Absolutely. Now going back into I clicked most exciting. Currently all single file throughout the field, with the biggest gap right here looking between Kevin and that pack. But it looks like they're having a lot of fun just driving. And of course, they didn't have to put a lot of time into the setups. These are all fixed setups, which saved a lot of time, and nobody really has the advantage based off setups, which you may see in many open setup leagues.
Right. The cars are 100% equal, and it basically comes down to driver and tactics and strategy. That's all that's going to dictate this race. So, you know, I kind of noticed, too, we've gone single file. You know, we've been green for about 6 laps or so. we've already gone single file. In the first 10 laps of this race, we didn't see hardly any single file. And I think, again, that shows the talent level of this field. In a low tier race, let's say you're spectating like bottom split, there's going to be pile up after pile up, and nobody learns anything. Nobody calms down. Nobody says, well, wait a minute, maybe I should take it easy for a while so I can be there at the end. But these guys are champions. They know what they're doing. They saw what happened when Cameron Stone tried to bump draft Alonso, when everybody was racing kind of crazy and making these bold moves. And now they're thinking, all right, we had our fun. Things went wrong. Now it's time to play it safe and get there to the end. And I always like to see when that happens because it shows the drivers are paying attention and they're playing it smart.
Yeah, absolutely. And many times,
Take it low, Craig.
which I don't want to talk too much about myself here, but before I joined Galaxy Cup Series, normally running that series, I really was not the best driver. I was averaging right around the 700-800 I rating mark. I was wrecking out of a lot of races. Those guys really showed me how to put together a consistent race, and it's showing here again today. And that's why that these four are the upper echelon of the iRacing server.
Absolutely correct. It's one of those things, man. It's just to watch drivers who are this good at what they do is just fascinating, and there's always something to learn. Like you said, they taught you how to be more consistent and how to kind of put together a race, which is something that I think a lot of people struggle with, and they don't even realize it, right? Because you get on iRacing and you do some of the official races, and they're 30, 40 laps, and you never have the chance to learn how to put together a long run and how to kind of pace yourself and strategize. Then you join a league like Galaxy or any of these other 100% leagues where you're doing these really long races. Suddenly you realize, oh man, I got to focus on consistency, and there's no better way to do it than to learn from the best. So yeah, that absolutely holds true. And right now, we got a bit of a two-car breakaway. It's Cameron Stone and Jimmy Costarellos just driving away. I mean, they have a solid 10 car lengths in the next car behind them. They've been drafting together really well. I've noticed a lot of bump drafting going on. And the cars behind just kind of struggling to catch up as we have a bit of a battle for second. You can see on your screen now, they have gone side by side for second and then side by side for fourth behind them. So those guys are duking it out, and that's what the leaders want to see. The leaders are working together, focusing on being as fast as possible in this sort of symbiotic relationship, while the guys behind them are just battling it out and slowing themselves down. So I'm sure they're very pleased to see that in their mirror as they continue to drive away.
Yeah, and as you can see, looking ahead, looks like they're about to catch up on Bryson Hicksonball, who has come off pit road 8 laps down. Just trying to get those points, as you may have not seen when he won 15 races, where those points would have mattered. They will matter in this series. So every last point matters, and it's fun to watch. Seeing guys who may not see, okay, I'm currently 13th, my race is over. Bryson kind of understands what is going to happen later on in the year where the points will matter.
Absolutely. I think everybody in this field is going to have something happen at some point. We've got 7 races in this series, including this one, and you can't just throw your hands up at the first incident and say, well, I'm done, especially this early on in the series. So Bryson Hicksonbaugh, you might wonder, well, why did he even bother coming out 8 laps down? Well, I'll tell you why, because he's ahead of Alonso Chicano, he's ahead of Wayne Grassy, and that's points he wouldn't have had if he stayed in pit road. If more people wreck out, Preston McRae, Stephen Parrott, Carl Felver, or even the leaders, Cameron Stone, if anybody wrecks out and their day is done, they can't get back out on the track, and it happens before 8 laps to go, Hicksonbaugh is going to get around them. He's going to take those points for himself, and every point counts, just like Cody said.
Yeah, and as we go back to this battle for the lead, it's tightened up between the top 4. My pick early on was Jonathan Delaney. I never really got to finish my sentence as we were going green. But many times throughout the season, the Daytona 500, he ran really well in. The first Talladega race, he won in Galaxy. And then when we went to Daytona 2, he was somebody that everybody wanted to work with because he is good with drafting. He understands the effort. And then also, if we go back and even look at Talladega 2, he pushed Cam Stone to that win. And then earlier last week, or 2 weeks ago, during the Indy 500, he was working really well as being the pusher. So he knows how to get it done at these drafting tracks, and it's showing right here, currently running third.
Yeah, John is he's got a lot of finesse. That is his driving style, is to be able to finesse things, because he's really good at road courses. Road courses, you have to have that ability. You have to know right when to roll into the brakes, right when to get back on the throttle, right where your steering input should be. You have to use a lot of just muscle memory and thinking when it comes to road courses. And while you use different abilities, and drafting isn't like running a road course, drafting is still something that requires that finesse. It requires you to be able to make quick decisions, to know where to put your car, when to make the lunge, when not to, when to work with somebody and when not to. And that finesse is just something that Delaney has always had. So when it comes to these kinds of tracks that require a lot of tactics, a lot of thinking, that's where he shines. That's why he won the Roval. That's why he's won the plate tracks, like you said. And he is a force here. I mean, they caught up. I mentioned they had a 10-car length gap back to second place. And now look at that. There's Delaney. He is right up there in third. And honestly, he's got more cars behind him joining the fray. We got a 5-car battle for the lead, spearheaded by Delaney being able to catch up to these leaders.
Yeah, man, this top 5 right now, looking fun. It's going to be fun to watch for the next multiple laps. Something I did notice from that last caution as we just crossed halfway was that it does seem that cautions did get turned off correctly. So caution laps are not counting in this race. Just wanted to make some clarification there. Noticed it on the last caution. So that's going to make it even more interesting. And I forget if we mentioned this or not, Andre, but these cars are good on fuel. So they're not holding back at all. They know what they got. They know that they don't need to worry about running out of fuel. They're good.
Yeah, I believe they were going to come up just short if we hadn't had that caution, but then we got a caution on lap 10. They were able to get it topped off, and now they're pretty much good to the end. So the only thing they're going to have to focus on is managing their tires, because I do think that could definitely come into play, because you're not going to pit for tires. You pit for tires, you're done. So I think the driver who manages his tires the best so that they are intact at the end of the race and they can have more on-throttle time through the corners, that's going to be the driver who's going to be in it to win it. So I know Cameron Stone is a very aggressive driver, and I also know that Cameron Stone knows a thing or two about conserving his equipment. Completely different game, but even back in, when we raced in the NASCAR Heat League years ago, we were at a race at Sonoma, and everybody had to pit for fuel, including me. I led the whole race pretty much. I come into pit, and I fall out second. Cameron Stone stayed out on the track, and I'm thinking, he's going to have to pit, and I'm going to come out in front of him because I got these fresher tires. Laps wind down. He never goes into the pit. Cameron Stone was able to stretch out 6 extra laps of fuel that nobody else could. And ever since then, I've always paid attention to how Cam kind of conserves his equipment and his tires, and I've always noticed he does a great job at it. So with that coming into play, and him already leading the race and not really having to pressure anybody, he could have a good chance at that today. So we're just going to have to see, and we've kind of remained single file, and I think that's definitely just the drivers taking it easy and saying, hey, let's be in it at the end instead of trying to wreck ourselves here at lap 29. And Delaney, he's up there. He's just kind of lurking. He's waiting. You got Felver and Schwingle back behind him doing the same thing, just kind of riding single file. But where it's going to get interesting, like you said earlier, Cody, the last 5 laps or so, because it's going to take a while to build up momentum and to get a run. If you start trying to build up a run on the white flag or even with 2 to go, that might be too late. You might not have enough time to afford yourself a mistake or a blocked run. So I think 5, 6 to go, that's when things are going to get exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first 10 laps, really exciting early on, people throwing blocks, 2 wide, 3 wide. And after that first accident, like you said earlier, that people kind of saw, like, okay, it's 50 laps, let's calm down a little, let's get to the end of this race, battle it out. And it looks like this 5-car breakaway's kind of gapped itself now about 2.5 seconds to Craig Fryer, who's leading that second pack. And then behind them, it looks like they kind of gapped themselves from Preston McRae and Carl Felver, who are 8 and 10 seconds back now. So it looks like they're maybe working together to try to get this breakaway here, get away from everybody else, so that way it's just the 5 of them battling at the end.
Probably. I would have to agree. And, we're coming up on 20 laps to go when they cross the line this time, which they just did. So the laps are winding down, and the smoother they keep it, the less yellow flags they have, the quicker this race is going to get to the end. And that's what these drivers want to do. They just want to be there at the end. They don't want to delay this. They don't want to get a bunch of yellow flags and shake up the running order. They want to make sure that things kind of stay as they are. This top 5, every single one of them is in a good position. It's anybody's game up there. And so if they can be in this same exact scenario where they're just running bumper to bumper together, when they get to the end of the race, they all have a chance at winning it. So you're going to see them play it cautious for a little while here, and then they're going to be definitely getting on it towards the end. But looks like a little bit of tandem drafting between Felver and Schwingel back there. They kind of dropped back a little bit, about 2 to 3 car lengths, and now Felver is kind of pushing him back up there. There goes Delaney down to second, or down up to second there, down the bottom of the track. Costarellos came on the radio when that happened, said, so I'm not sure he's too happy about Delaney moving him there. I think there might have been a little bit of contact, but Delaney's going to file back into third, and things are going to remain pretty much stagnant to what we've seen.
Yeah, and just to go back a little, it's actually Deerhold that's in 5th currently. We're still getting used to these numbers, especially color combo. Makes it a little interesting for us as broadcasters, because we're used to certain people having certain colors on their car. I'm used to Cam having that silver Coors Light, or Jimmy running that Pepsi car, so we'll adjust in due time. Give us a break. My first time broadcasting.
Yeah, we will learn. The IROC series in real life had the exact same paint scheme, just different colors, and then the name on the side. And, of course, for us here on the simulator, it's a little hard to see the name on the side of the car when they're going by so quickly, but the colors are kind of what we're going off of, and that is my mistake. Felver is also in an orange car. That's a slightly deeper shade of orange, reddish, and that was just me being a big dumb. So my bad, and I apologize. But again, we're kind of remaining single file, but it really seems like Delaney doesn't want to. I think Delaney, he kind of showed that when he got up underneath the number 8 machine, Costarellos. He got up on the bumper. He was able to make the move down low. Didn't stick. He didn't have the draft help, so he had to file back into third. But now, even again, you can see there goes Delaney down to the bottom of the track. He is going to get up to the quarter panel, try to side draft, which I'm not sure if it works when the spoilers are this big, but he's going to try it anyways. Door to door coming out of the corner, and it's just going to be a question, who does Cam help? Cam comes down low, gives the draft to Delaney. I wonder if Cam's going to try to keep these guys side by side just for his own benefit.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and I do think towards the end here, Cam will work with Jonathan. I know, like I mentioned, Talladega 2, they had the plan. Delaney pushed Cam to the win. He'll make sure he lets you know that too. As you mentioned, John pushes issues sometimes, but he can, because he may be one of the most talented kids I've ever seen in a car this early on, especially. He's only 16 years old and can wheel that car. But looking at Cam, he knows, like you mentioned, he's there at the end every race unless something happens to him, and he can keep guys behind him.
And here comes Delaney again, down on the bottom. He's going to try it again. He has no draft help. The reason that's not working out, viewers at home, is that that top line seems to be where the cars are. And when he dives down low, he doesn't have that draft. He's not getting pulled around the track by the cars in front of him. And it just kind of stalls out. He doesn't have the momentum to clear him. And side drafting, I just don't think is going to be as effective in these cars as they would be in a stock car. Because in a stock car, the reason that side drafting works is because you're redirecting air directly onto the spoiler on the back of the car, because the spoiler is connected to the deck lid. And that creates drag, and that slows you down. These cars, the spoiler isn't really directly connected to the deck lid. It's only got 2 connection points, and it's raised way up in the sky. So putting your nose up against the side of this car isn't going to have as big of an effect. So Delaney tried it. He's been trying to side draft, but I think overall the effort's kind of futile.
Yeah, and something to look at here, especially with how powerful the draft is, we're closing in on Bryson Hixenbaugh here towards the front of the field. We'll see if John's able to use that to his advantage. I know he just came on the radio and he's told the guys to go low. So John may be able to use that to his advantage if he can get low on Jimmy here and kind of keep him up high as he dives low currently. But it'll be interesting to see how that comes into play.
Yeah, if he can use Hixenbaugh as a pick and force Costarellos to kind of slow down as they approach the lap car, that would be the move to make. That would pretty much secure him second, and then from there, it's a lot easier to pass the leader than it is to pass second or third, because the leader doesn't have the draft help that the other guys do. So I think second would definitely be the catbird seat for John Delaney. Hixenbaugh going way down to the bottom of the track. He's going to let all of those guys go, no problem. And so not quite the way I think Delaney wanted that to play out. That was a little bit too simple in a way if you're Jonathan Delaney, but definitely the way you wanted to see it go if you're anybody else. Now, here comes Costarellis at the bottom of Cameron Stone. They're going to stay side by side, and I believe Costarellis is going to lead that lap. Now a huge push from Jonathan Delaney to Cameron Stone. Going into the corner, Cameron Stone sliding up the corner. Costarellis clear up into P1 as now Stone striking back, driving down the banking, full throttle, trying to get side by side again, and he will. They're door to door. This time, advantage goes to Cameron Stone on the bottom. And look at that, right behind him, Cody. That's Jonathan Delaney. You talked about how well they worked together in the past. I think if Cam wants somebody to push him, if he wants help to stay in the lead, that's going to be his best bet.
Oh yeah, sweet meat pie here. We're getting at it now. 12 to go, just crossing for 11 to go. It's gonna get very interesting here as John starts pushing his way to the front. Now side by side with Jimmy again for second, and it looks like he may get the draft off Cam here going in down the backstretch.
Gonna have to wait and see how this plays out. The draft has been kind of unpredictable, and a large part of that is just what Cameron Stone has decided to do. As the leader, he dictates this race. He controls who gets the draft, who he works with, and so far he's kind of played a wild card. He's gone up high, he's helped Costarellos, he's gone down low, he's helped Delaney. Now a little bit of contact between Delaney and Costarellos, as Schwingle right behind him is kind of boxed in with nowhere to go. If things go south, he's in a bad situation, so he's probably going to want to try to get himself into a bit of a safer predicament. As now Delaney sliding up the track a little bit. I think the tires might be worn on that car. Again, nearly making contact with Costarellos, and all the while, Cameron Stone still leading out front.
Yeah, and it looks like John in that last corner got a little loose and started to fall back a little, but as I say that, he goes right back into third, and it looks like he may be able to get a little draft off Costarellos here going to the lead. And of course, as we mentioned, we may not have seen Swingle and Deerhold as much, but obviously they're top drivers in their own right, and they're kind of a wild card to me and you because we haven't. But obviously, if they're in this series, they deserve to be here, so they'll battle for that win as well.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody that's in this race is very talented. Even the drivers who were involved in that incident early on. That is in no way an indicator of their skill. That was a racing incident that happened to take out some really good drivers, unfortunately. But everybody in this field is phenomenal, and that's what makes it so fun. And that's what I love so much about the real-life IROC series, was that you were taking the top talent from a bunch of different racing disciplines, putting them in the same car at the same track and saying, hey, let's see what you can do. And we've essentially done the same thing right here. And now there goes Delaney down to the bottom again. Costarellos hooked onto the bumper of Cameron Stone. Delaney is going to get the nose on Stone, and he has the lead for the time being, but is he going to get clear?
Man, that was a massive move from John. He went from third to the lead in one corner. Man, he's absolutely impressive for being 16 years old, knowing how to wheel that car, not hitting Costarellos. Obviously, they made contact a little. Going to happen with close fender racing.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised there wasn't more contact, honestly. But Delaney is a very impressive driver. I talked about him a lot back at Watkins Glen for the Galaxy Cup Series. Jonathan Delaney found himself at the back of the field 2 separate times, and both of those times worked his way back up towards the front. And unfortunately, his night came to an early end at Watkins Glen when there was a car stuck in the Armco in the very narrow top section of the S's. He had nowhere to go, got collected in that, and that was the end of his day. But prior to that, man, it was one of the most phenomenal runs I think I've ever seen at a road course in a stock car on iRacing. And like you mentioned, he's 16 years old. He's still young. This is a kid to watch. If you're interested in sim racing or even like esports talent, I think Delaney's going places. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting a little away from the battle for the lead here as it gets interesting. Do want to give a shout out to Kevin Steele's parents. Made me transition over to the YouTube platform for this race. So I didn't want to be remiss without mentioning Kevin's parents here. Currently give him a little shout out on the broadcast as it gets good for the lead, of course. Don't know when not to, but yep, so there's Kevin currently running P6.
And right now, they are side by side for second place. Cameron Stone, for the first time in a long time, has a little bit of breathing room. But I don't think it's going to last very long, Cody, because these guys behind him are in the slipstream. The laps are running down. We're on lap 46 out of 50. So not much time left. It is go time. There's now a little bit of contact between Costarelos and Schwingle.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Sorry, no, I cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, and I think a little of it too is Costarelos and Delaney made they're beating and banging going down the backstretch, and I think here what John and Jimmy have to try to do is let Cam get out to kind of a bigger lead, and kind of work together to try to get around him. As it was mentioned earlier, these cars get massive runs.
Delaney into Cameron Stone. Stone hard into the inside wall, driver's side first. He's going to spin around, come to a rest right there in the infield grass. Delaney nosing it hard into the outside wall at the initial part of that incident. Two fantastic drivers dominating this race, now taken out. And
I did not want to see that.
Wow, that was unfortunate. But you know what, Cody? We talked about it. Whenever there's a big pileup,
I really want to
who's not involved?
That was fun, though.
Kevin, consistency, steal.
Look at him up there. He avoided the wreck. He has put himself in prime position for this restart.
Now,
this is going to be interesting.
Now, just going back to that accident, want to see kind of what happened here.
Stone and Delaney are clear for damage.
Oh, John just came up the track on Cam. Everybody missed him, though, which is beneficial. So it stinks to see two top drivers battling, and unfortunately, sad end to the race.
Yeah, not the way they wanted their night to end. We saw a lot of aggression there. You know, we had drivers beating and banging, and we saw Delaney. He was chomping at the bit. He wanted to get up front, and it's so hard to pass the leader. I mean, how many laps did Cameron Stone lead right there, even being under fire from second and third constantly? Cam was able to maintain the lead, and honestly, I think if you were going to get around him, you had to try to be aggressive, and he just kind of overstepped the boundary there. And in professional racing or any form of racing, ideally, you want to be right at the edge of what your car is capable of. You want to be at the limits. And when it comes to what you do and how aggressive you are, you want to be on the edge of that as well. You want to be right there at the limit. And sometimes when the laps wind down, there's not much racing left, and you can see that checkered flag, you kind of forget where your limits are. So, unfortunate. Cameron Stone came across the radio and said, expletive, that was fun for a while. So, definitely probably a little frustrated, but he also not too upset over what had just happened. I think he knows it was just some hard racing. But, man, what a restart this is going to be.
Yeah, especially because, as I mentioned, caution laps do not count now. So we are getting a 5-lap shootout, and you know all of these guys from 1st to 10th, they're going to be going at it because they want this win. Or, sorry, not 1st to 10th, 1st to 8th. My relative was showing wrong. But, I mean, at this point of the race, it's going to get very, very interesting. And here's the thing, too. Both our choices are out. Now, Andre.
Yeah, you are right. I picked Hixenbaugh. You picked Delaney. And that's a commentator's curse if I ever seen it. My God. You know, only a handful of people out of this race, and it's the people we picked. So, and you know what's funny was I almost picked Alonso instead of Hixenbaugh, and he's also out. So, man, that's unfortunate. But
I'll tell you what.
Man,
my eye is on Kevin here. I know we talk about him, consistency, but he's always there at the end, and now he is back with that lead pack restarting 4th. As we're 1 to green.
Yeah, it's going to be second row. It's going to be pretty much as far up the grid as he's been tonight, but prime position. And things are going to get wild, man. I mean, we're restarting. It'll be 47 out of 50 laps when we cross the line for the green flag here. So not much time remaining. And like you mentioned, everybody back to 8th has a chance. You know, this isn't like restarting 8th at Kansas. This is a lot like restarting 8th at Talladega. You know, it's anybody's game, and they know that. They're going to have to take every opportunity that presents itself, every single gap that they see, they're going to have to shoot for it, and it's going to be a lot of aggression out of these guys. Lights are off on the pace car, and I tell you what, I could not predict what's about to happen.
It's going to get wild. Man, I can't wait to see what happens between all of these drivers, especially because we have been treated to such a good race so far. Nobody's really shown anything where they're able to pull away, and it's going to make it interesting as the pace car's ready to pull in here.
We have them single filed up, as the real life IROC series would have done. And the green flag has flown, so quite a good jump to your current leader, Jamie Costarellos. He was running third when that incident broke out between the top two, so by virtue, he inherited the lead. And even if that hadn't happened, I would have expected to see him up front there, because he was really challenging for the lead, had a lot of speed. Now he's up there, and it's going to be hard to take. So right now, single file, bit of a gap that's probably going to close up quite a bit as the draft takes effect. Dustin Schwingle in second there, getting a huge run as they go into 3 and 4. He's not quite going to lunge for it yet. He's just going to get up to the back bumper and kind of stay there. And then, of course, behind them, that is Landon Deerhold. Again, he's going to use that draft through the tri-oval, and before you know it, we're going to have a three-way battle for the lead. As now, Schwingle down low through the tri-oval. He is side-by-side contact. They're bouncing off each other as they go into 1 for the lead.
Man, they're going at it. They all want to win this race. As it looks like Costarellos gets back to the back bumper.
Crossover maneuver similar to what Cameron Stone did earlier in the night. Drove it down the bank and got back to the bottom, but maybe not with the advantage this time, because that is Deerhold pushing Schwingle, and that draft is huge, but maybe not big enough, as Costarellos is now back to the point. And behind them, as we cross the line to take lap 49 of 50, that's Kevin Steele in 4th.
Yeah, 2 to go here at the line. And I'll tell you what, I think Kevin's just biding his time here with 2 to go. He wants to make sure that he can get that run at the end, as he looks like he's looking for 3rd.
The gaps have closed almost entirely. These guys are bumper to bumper, making their way down the backstretch for the penultimate time. Kevin Steele pushing that red machine there of Deerhold. And now, again, there goes Costarellos down to the bottom, nearly 3 wide. He thought better of it, backed out of it there. Deerhold did. And that's going to put that 8 machine back up in the lead as we come through the tribal to take the white flag. From here on out, this is it.
And here we go. At the line, Schwingle has the lead going into this final lap as Kevin makes a bid for the win.
Here comes Kevin Steele down to the bottom from 4th to 2nd, trying to get to 1st. It's not quite going to stick. He's going to stall out right there at 2nd, side by side. You've got Deerhold in 3rd trying to push. And now up to the outside line as the leader, Schwingle, is trying desperately to defend that top position. It's not going to work. Here comes Costarellos back to the bottom. He's going to have the advantage with that faster preferred bottom lane. But the question is, do they touch? Do they rub? Is there any draft help? Who is it going to be? Through-line contact! Costarellos!
Oh!
No! Schwingle wins it.
Man, what a race at the end there.
Wow.
Holy moly, did we get treated to a good finish there.
Wow.
Was that a tie?
Oh, I think that may have been a tie.
No way.
It was a tie.
That was a tie. The gap, I'm looking at the timing and scoring right now. The gap is 0.000.
I think that's a tie.
That is a tie. Now, going back here, let's take a look at that. Sorry, I gotta rewind it. I know all the hype is now lost.
That was... and you gotta think, Costarellos got almost turned into the apron. He was able to get that car corrected, and he's still tied for the lead.
What a finish to the first ever 100 IROC race. Man, Deerhold made that move, almost had it. Let's rewind it a little here. Oh, sorry. Not very good with the computer. If you look at that, they crossed the line almost identical to one another. Oh, and as
let's go frame by frame, Cody. If you hit that little button with the, yeah, right there.
Okay, I gotta rewind it though because it brought it to me to the end of the race. I was all excited. All right, sorry, technical difficulties here. Probably shouldn't be commentating and producing. So
That's all right.
So as you can see here, Deerhold makes that move down low, ready to get to the lead, makes contact with the right rear of Costarellos. How he kept that full throttle without hitting the inside line or inside wall and going through the grass, I really do not know. And
I mean, he timed that just about perfectly.
yeah,
If there hadn't been any contact, I think he might have had a run at it. But then that contact was made. They both get unsettled. You can see he just Costarellos kind of came back down and then actually kind of slapped him again because he was still in the process of recovering, and that got Deerhold even looser. And then once he clipped the grass, that was it. But then it was a drag race to the line between Costarellos and Dustin Schwingle. And again, the scoreboard does not show us any gap between the two, 0.000. And as we go frame by frame, you can see there it is. It is honestly that is a dead tie. As far as how the game works, I'm assuming both of these drivers are running at about 60 frames per second. They both reach the start-finish line at the exact same frame.
that is a tie. Holy moly.
I have never in my life, not in real life racing, not in RC car racing, not in sim racing, ever seen a finish that was a legitimate, straight-up, undeniable tie.
Holy moly.
Until tonight.
We got to take a picture of that, send it to the masses, because this may have been one of the best finishes I have ever seen, even in real life, with how close that is. All right.
I am just flabbergasted at that. I just never in my life have I seen a tie like that, even in sim racing. I gotta wonder what the league. I mean, as far as the simulator is concerned, Dustin Schwingle won this race. That's the green car at the top of your screen, or neon yellow, I suppose. As far as the sim is concerned, he won this race. Now, I don't know how it came to that conclusion. I'm not a computer, but I gotta think the admins are gonna have to mull this one over. I don't know how you could award a win in this situation without determining some sort of tiebreaker.
Yeah, I really don't think there's a way that they're going to be able to determine this finish. It was that close. All right, so who came across the line third? Kevin came across the line third as we get ready to pull him in for their interviews. As I accidentally pulled in Kevin too early. But what do you say we get to some interviews here? How do you want to start this? Do you want to start with the lead too and see how they want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. While they're still hyped up about it, let's go ahead and get Schwingle in here.
Dustin Swingle. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, go ahead, Cody.
So, Dustin Swingle, you got a copy?
His mic is currently muted. We might put him back in the waiting room if he wasn't ready. We'll bring in somebody else in that case.
Let's go with Jimmy Costarellos.
All right. Take it away, Cody.
Jimmy, you got a copy? This is Cody up in the booth.
Yeah, I got you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you feeling after that race?
Well, kind of stinks I got second. The most important thing is that was a blast. I had a lot of fun. Nice, clean, and really close race. That's what I like to see. So, that was awesome.
Now, what was your plan going into the end of that race, especially with the caution with 5 to go?
Honestly, I didn't feel good. I thought being in the lead towards the end was the worst case scenario because the draft is so strong. But I don't know. It was a really close finish, and I had a good time, so we'll take it.
Now, saw some beating and banging with John early on, and we heard all week how these cars can be kind of fragile going into the end or going into the wall, beating and banging on one another. Did you seem to sense that was the case? Because it looked like you took some good hits.
Delaney's an animal. We all know that, but we like him anyways. I don't really think I took too bad of hits. I mean, I know I got a few 0X's, but they didn't seem like they were anything too serious, and they definitely didn't affect the handling, as you can see.
Man, I'll tell you what, that was some excitement, especially my first race broadcasting up here for the IROC series. hopefully you guys bring this to every race. Dirt or Andre, do you got anything to add to that?
Just I just want to say great run. You know, you were up there battling it out with Cameron Stone and Jonathan Delaney before they got involved, and did a phenomenal job playing defense. And you are a part of, I think, the only tie I've ever seen in racing, simulation or real life. I mean, that finish was insane. I'm not sure how the game determined who even won that, but just congratulations on your second place finish there. Before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to shout out or thank?
You guys for putting on the show or thank you for announcing the show, I should say. I'm glad I could be a part of it with your first race on your belt here, Cody. Thanks to the parents and Kevin, of course, putting on this wonderful series. I'm so happy they invited me. Thank you so much. And of course, to SPR, Rich Petrucco, and all my teammates. So thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you, Jimmy. Good luck the rest of the season. Hope to have you back up here shortly.
Here, thanks, guys.
That was Jimmy, our second place finisher, and we just got word that Dustin's mic now works, so I'll let you take it away here, Andre.
All right, Dustin, you got a copy?
I do. I'm good now. Thank you.
First off, man, congratulations on that win. That was probably the most insane thing I think I've ever seen in racing in general. And to see you pull off that win, that was a ton of fun. You were kind of lurking, top 5, running, third, fourth, didn't lead that many laps, but you were constantly in position. Was that the strategy? Just making sure you were there at the end and maybe not even trying to lead because of how good the draft was?
Well, I was lucky enough to draw for the pole and really tried to keep that lead as long as I could, but you're right, it only ended up being a few laps. And then I got pinned on the bottom and just thought to myself, well, I could burn up my tires trying to race here on the bottom or just drop back and fall into line. And that's what I ended up doing. And just didn't feel like it was worth trying to burn up the tires racing for the lead with 20, 30 laps to go. So, yeah, I just kind of waited there. Those guys in front of me wrecked maybe 4 or 5 to go. And when we had that last little stint there, just gave it all I could.
Absolutely. I don't think you could have given that car any more on that last lap. That was phenomenal. And your strategy worked out. I mean, playing it safe, making sure that you weren't burning up your equipment, that got you the win. And it was an absolutely amazing show to watch. So congratulations on your win. Before we let you go, Cody, I'll ask you if you have anything to add.
Yeah, no, of course, Dustin, me and Andre may have not seen you race as much with us being involved in the Galaxy Series, but it was definitely a treat to watch you race. Definitely could see why you were invited to the series. Is there anybody you want to thank?
Yeah, I just got to thank the race control here and everybody putting this show on tonight and this little series that we got going. Looks like it's going to be a blast.
Yep, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for coming to the series, and we look forward to hopefully having you up here again sometime soon.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, you guys.
And last, but our third place finisher, Kevin Consistency Steele, as I'll bring him up into the booth. Kevin, this is Cody up in the booth. You got a copy?
How you doing, Cody?
Good. How are you, Kevin?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. Better than I expected.
So that must have been something watching that finish in third place.
Well, I wasn't fourth. I probably should have been fourth. I think it was Landon made contact with somebody. I don't know. It was a very colorful blur in front of me. But yeah, I came away third. I didn't know what to expect from that final restart. I thought those first 3 were going to fire off and get away from me because I destroyed my tires early and fell way back from the lead pack. But they felt a lot better after the caution. They cooled down a little bit, and they were obviously racing one another. And I think that's the only reason I got up to them. And I went for a move there, I think in 1 and 2 on the last lap or something like that. And it was just so hard to pass on the inside. It wasn't going to work. But there was a gap there, so I had to go for it. But yeah, I'm definitely happy with third after a crazy finish.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andre was commenting during the race that how you're always Mr. Consistency. You're always there at the end. You missed the big one at the start of the race. Then you missed that second accident, which got you to the front. What do you contribute to being so consistent?
Well, I mean, I think we're all really unfamiliar with these cars, so I kind of expected guys to take it a little bit easier, honestly. But yeah, I kind of, I started in the back and kind of just figured I'd just play it as safe as I could, but started moving forward. And then once my tires overheated, I just figured I'd, kind of ride around and see what happened. And yeah, I didn't really push too much during the race. And, they used their tires up quite a bit, I think they were 8 seconds ahead of me before that last caution. So I think I just ended up with fresher tires. But, I mean, from missing the wrecks, I mean, the last one there was way too far ahead of me for me to get involved in. So I guess that's part of playing it safe, is just not being near the accidents. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's just kind of the way I play it. If I'm not super comfortable, then I'm just going to take it a little bit easy. And sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't.
And I'll pass the mic over to Dirt here, or sorry, Andre. I apologize. I'll let him add anything he has.
I don't really have much to add other than just congratulations on your podium finish. That was a blast to watch. Kevin, I do got to ask, what is your expectations going forward with this series? Because you mentioned that you expected people to take it easy. You don't know the cars. We talked about it at the top of the broadcast, how a lot of these drivers aren't familiar with these cars. They drive a lot differently than what you were used to in a stock car. But do you think as the drivers get more comfortable, the intensity levels are going to go up?
Yeah, most likely. I mean, I think the intensity level was pretty high there, which might have been the reason that there was a couple accidents. But I don't know. I mean, it's not a playoff format or anything like that. It's just whoever gets the most points, in 7 races. So I think I can do pretty well by just trying to, keep my nose clean and everything like that. The biggest issue for me is probably going to be I'm probably not going to lead a lot of laps without being more aggressive. So I guess if we get down to it and I'm anywhere close in points, I'm going to have to push a little bit harder. But, for now, just get through the first couple rounds. There's some road courses in here that are wild that, next week going to Auto Club road course, I've never even seen it. So I'm going to take that one a little bit easy. But, when we get into the plate tracks or where these cars are absolutely insane, and you're kind of going to have to take some chances there. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Like I said, I mean, you guys know my plan. I'm just going to, chug on through and pick off the points where I can get them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sounds great, Kevin. Well, thank you again for helping put on this series. Paints look great, and we hope to see you back up in the booth shortly.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you guys broadcasting on short notice. Hope you had fun.
Oh, I had a blast.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Well, any final thoughts from you tonight, Andre, about this race?
Man, I think we said it all. That was wild. I have never seen a finish. Never in my time. That was the most insane thing I think I've seen in a long time. I'm excited going forward. I'm excited for the rest of this series. Like Kevin said, we're going to a road course at Auto Club, which is a track that I'm sure very few of the competitors are familiar with. Kevin himself said he's never even seen the road course. So when you get to a road course and the drivers don't really know the lines, they don't have that much time or experience on it, things get kind of crazy. So I'm looking forward to it. And then, of course, getting back to some oval circuits. I hope we can have some more great shows like we had tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining me up here. I know it was really short notice for you as well. I had a blast, obviously, working on this for the future. Hope to improve on it. And glad you were able to call it with me.
Thank you for inviting me on. But from both of us, Cody Bird and Andre Grandbush, this has been the IROC series, 100% race length. So we're going to broadcast hopefully some more of these races in the series going forward, and we hope to see you there. Good night, everybody.
Have a good night. All right, stream ended.
Cool.
Wow.